help your application when you're applying grad school?
Saying I want to move on to a section where I ask my guests something that's on their mind recently, or anything that's on their mind currently, related to the Hmong community, and just kind of want to chat about it. So I'm just kind of curious, saying, I'm sure you're kind of deep into this field, but I'm just curious, is there anything on your mind recently related to the Hmong community that you want to share with us about and we can chat about?
Well, I think something that's really interesting is like just the way that Hmong Americans use social media.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, good. That's
Yeah,
very
and so
relevant to us.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why I
Uh-huh.
started the Hmong American experience is that
Yeah. And now
to
for our listeners who don't know what that is, share with us what is the Hmong American experience. I think it's awesome. So share with us what that is.
yeah, and so it's like it's like a focus on um positive and inspiring news
Mm-hmm.
within the Hmong American community, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the stories highlights individuals that have been successful
Mm-hmm.
in maybe like non-traditional fields, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe the first to accomplish something. So
Right.
maybe the stories feature that, like pioneer stories, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then I mean also, like we try to focus on positive stories about Hmong culture, Hmong
Mm-hmm.
American culture,
Mm-hmm.
about Hmong American politics,
Yeah.
and also on issues that are related to social justice,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so in this way, like I tried, the site tries to have positive stories to counter like the way that Hmong Americans are usually represented, right, by the mainstream media,
Mm-hmm.
and it tends to be like very negative stories, like
Mm.
like domestic violence, gang
Right. Right.
that,
Right.
and so I think that if imagine if you are a Hmong youth and
Yeah.
all that you see or know about Hmong American is like negative stories,
Yes.
like
Yes.
and then you may grow up not seeing or not understand that there are our community is more complex than that, right?
Oh, yes.
It's
Yeah.
not just those
Mm-hmm.
issues that when we are in the news, it's
Mm-hmm.
about that, right? And
Yeah.
so that's one of the reasons why like the site started was that to tell these stories that to provide a counter narrative, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
there are many success stories, and
Yeah.
these needs to be told,
Yeah.
right? I mean, not just to celebrate them, but to also to inspire others
Mm-hmm.
to go on to the next level.
That's awesome. I just want to comment that I think you're absolutely right, and it's not like it's not like what you're doing at Hmong American Experience is like skewing what other people are saying. It's just looking at the facts, right? Like the facts
Hmm.
are there are Hmong people doing these things, right? If we just look at
Yeah.
the whole facts instead of just a small section of the Hmong community, right? Like you're saying these domestic violence, because that's not faithful to what's actually happening, right? And I love
Hmm.
what you're doing because you're just saying, hey, let's take a real look at what's actually going on. Hmong people are doing some awesome things, and so I think that's really
Yeah.
cool. Now,
Well, I
for
mean,
our
like,
viewers, can you share where's your website at? How can they find Hmong American Experience? Where is that
yeah.
at?
So we're mostly based on Facebook, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just look for Hmong American Experience
Mm-hmm.
or Hmong
Okay.
EA, and then you'll be able to find it. And I think that the other part is that when you look at a lot of the data, right, that
Mm-hmm.
when Hmong Americans are mentioned in research or data,
Mm-hmm.
then our it tells a really dark story,
Yeah.
or really that Hmong Americans are not doing well in education, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have some of the lowest educational attainment, where we have some of the highest levels of poverty,
Mm-hmm.
and so when you look at even the data, right, that's a story that they tell.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it misses the point because our community is so young.
Mm-hmm.
Like Hmong Americans are the youngest racial or ethnic group in America. Like the
Mm-hmm.
average age for Hmong Americans are like 21, 22,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
more than half the population is under the age of 25.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and when you look at all these measurements, like um, then you see that yes, it's gonna say that, oh, this community is not doing well, they're not working, they're not going to school, right? But there's so much potential, right? There's so
Mm-hmm.
much opportunity because it's such a young community, and so if policy people don't understand this,
Mm-hmm.
then they can't support. They won't be able to find resources to support this community that is so young.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of the reason why the site I created the site as well is like to really try to create change.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say to our viewers right now, the Hmong American Experience Facebook page and the website, it's super awesome. I've seen some awesome things on there, and saying just a lot of props to you for doing that. I think it's super awesome. Now, I want to go back to something you said earlier as we brought this up, is that you're interested in how Hmong people are using social media, right? Mm-hmm. And could you talk a little bit more about that? What are some of your observations about it that you're seeing?
I think that a lot of they use it, and the way they communicate, like they'll do things. I mean, it's natural because it's not just Hmong people that do this, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really hard for them to like distinguish between like you know what is real news or what is fake news,
right?
And they tend to like like rumors spread like wildfire, things like that, and then a lot of times like stories that shouldn't even be news are shared like thousands of times, and then like like the cash me outside joke with the right, like
the Dr. Phil guest,
like,
yes,
that was shared like I think like 30,000 times, right?
Right.
And then or like things that aren't really shouldn't even be like important.
Totally
given
agree.
The spotlight, right?
I totally agree.
Yeah,
we need to be sharing like your story and other Hmong people's story a lot more than that.
Yeah, and so I think that's one thing that really interests me, just seeing like what is shared, like what is important, right? Or what do our community think is important, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that I think that's only on the surface, but I think that like social media could be really a really important tool for our community, like in terms of communication,
right?
In terms of resources, education, right? So there's a lot of things that could be done using social media and the internet, and so I hope that more people will use it for that purpose as well.
Yeah.
And then, for example, like like there's a lot of issues that happen when in the community. Like the most recent one was that grandmother that was attacked by the dog in Coon Rapids, Minnesota, right? Mm-hmm. So because one of my friends, we were talking about this, and so it's because of social media that this was brought to light, and now like the there was a statement, a press conference about that issue, and it went viral, and so it created some pressure for them to respond to this issue, right? Because if none of that was generated, right, if no one shared the story, right, it wouldn't have made the news, and then the police would have just written it as a report that the dog, they thought that it was an intruder and the dog bit the grandmother, right? And so now that it went viral, now there's a response to it. There's media attention to it, to what happened to the grandmother.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, I totally agree. I think social media, can be really instrumental in those sorts of things. But like you said, extremely misabused or misused for I think wasteful things. And you're right. It's not specific to Hmong people. I mean, I just want to make that clear that I know you're not making a claim that it's just Hmong people. This is systemic among everybody who uses social media, that they go down these rabbit holes and just share and look at all these crazy things. And so, Seng, I do want to ask you this question, and I'm kind of curious because you're in this world, right? You're in academia, and specifically, you're interested in Hmong issues. Right now, I mean, I know we've celebrated 40 years in the Hmong, the 40 years in this country, the Hmong people have been here. How has the academic literature about Hmong people and about Hmong issues, how has that developed, and where are we at right now in terms of the Hmong literature in academia?
Well, I mean, even the word Hmong itself, like before 1972, it didn't exist, right? Until, Dr. Yingdao wrote his dissertation that Hmong people, we call ourselves Hmong, right? And so, and of course, with journalists writing the word Hmong, right? And so even that word, it came to existence just since 1972.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. And then, as a result of the Secret War, when we left Laos and we went to the refugee camps, and then we came here, when Hmong people were coming to the United States in the early 80s, there was probably less than like 5 books, five manuals, about Hmong that people have studied Hmong, right? There's probably less than 5. And so today there are like thousands of books about Hmong. And there's you have to be critical of how Hmong have been written about, because most of the sources and literature that we have is that has been from outsider perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
right? Outsiders have come in to study us, to write our language for us, and so some of that is inaccurate.
Mm.
But then that gets cited over and over again, right? Like, for example, like Hmong means free, like Hmong doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean free, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Uh-huh.
then that is always cited over and over again, right? And so things like that we have to be careful of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it has changed a lot. Um, from just a handful of books to now, more than, I would say, over 1,000 books about Hmong. And there are many Hmong American writers today. Recently, like, my Vang was acknowledged with the poetry prize, the Walt Whitman poetry prize, and then there's like the Hmong American Writer Circle that are writing books about Hmong, and so like there's a lot of I would see a positive change happening, um, but I think that we need more. We need more of it, and like we from 1972, there's only one Hmong who had a doctorate degree, right? And today there are over 1,000 that have doctorates, right? And so we have come very far um, for our community in the last 40 years, but I think that we're still at a point where we can still count. Like we can still count off like how many people we have that are doing this, right? And so I think that the challenge for us is that we need to get to the point where we can't count or keep track of these accomplishments. And I think when we get there, then our community will be a lot better. We'll be able to advance our community by having all these people that are able to be resourceful leaders, and then not just having one leader, because I think we followed that model for too long, having like one Hmong leader, one Hmong organization to lead us, right? And so I think that we have to get to a point where um, leadership should be based on their qualifications, and we need different leaders for different things. Like one person or one organization cannot solve all the issues in our community, right? So I can't hear you. So
Oh, sorry about that. I totally agree with you on that. Um, I, I do want to ask a question about the advancement of the Hmong community and your thoughts on that. But before I do that, I'm curious to know your thoughts saying, in the Hmong literature in academia right now, is there a field or a specific Hmong question or Hmong issue that you wish more Hmong academics would do more research on, or let's say there's a flock of graduate students who are writing dissertations and they need to focus on something. Is there an area in the Hmong community that you'd like to see more grown?
well, I think I would just say to be cautious and to be critical. Like don't do a study and then just focus on problems in the
Mm-hmm.
community, because a lot of the literature shows that like even Hmong graduate students would would go would put, do research on the community, and
Mm-hmm.
then they would just look at problems,
Mm-hmm.
like and so when you only look at the problem, like you don't see the whole picture
Mm-hmm.
of the community. So I think that to do more than that and to be critical of of the research that is out there, because it may be inaccurate, it may not be,
Mm-hmm.
I think that the work that you do, it should always be connected to the community. That the
Mm-hmm.
community should get some benefit from it. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not really helpful if you write a dissertation and then your dissertation is just sitting in the library that
Uh-huh.
like no one's reading it, or
Yeah.
no one is
Which is
no
probably
one's
true of
discussing it.
most dissertations, right?
Yeah, so I think that
Yeah.
if you are Hmong and you want to research in the Hmong community, then it should be, I think that there should be some sort of partnership. It should be
Mm-hmm.
community based,
Yeah.
that because they are going to be your informant. They're going to be your resource, right? And so there should be something given back to the community,
Mm-hmm.
so that they get something out of it too, not just the researcher completing it for their dissertation or masters. And so that happens a lot, I think, with non-Hmong
Mm-hmm.
scholars that come into the community. They come and look at a problem, they write about it, and then they complete their dissertation or thesis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the community doesn't get anything out of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I see, I would encourage not to repeat that cycle.
Mm-hmm. And we were talking a little bit, and you were mentioning about kind of advancement of the Hmong community and things like that. I'm kind of curious, saying, a lot of people will say things like, we need to preserve the Hmong community, preserve the Hmong culture, things like that as we move forward. Just a short question. Number one, do you agree with that? And number two, if so, what does that mean to preserve our Hmong culture moving forward?
Well, I think that because I see it very differently because
Mm-hmm.
I talk to elders and even young people. They feel like the culture is dying.
Mm-hmm.
They feel that the culture is vanishing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, but I don't see it like that. I see that the culture is changing.
Okay.
I mean,
Interesting.
for
Interesting.
me,
Yeah.
like I think like culture
Mm-hmm.
is not something that's static. It's not
Yeah.
fixed, right?
Okay.
And so
Interesting.
culture and traditions are
Mm-hmm.
should change. And so I see it as that change is needed
Mm-hmm.
to for our cultures to survive, right? And so, like, people, I often hear people say that, oh, like the Hmong youth today, they don't speak Hmong well. They, but then I would argue against that at no point in history has more people been able to read and write Hmong than
Yeah.
now, right?
Hey, that
And that will continue to happen.
that's
And
true. That's very
so I
true.
think that we
Mm-hmm.
should definitely really critically look at our culture, preserve the parts that we feel are beneficial to us, that are
Mm-hmm.
helpful, that may help us, to be successful
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. But I think that, change is something that is going to happen no matter what we do. And I think sometimes like, some traditions should be broken because
Yeah.
they they may not be fair to women or
Right.
youth, right? Things like
Right.
that. And so because for us to, I think, as Hmong Americans, like we're not going to go back to Laos, right? The most of
Yeah.
us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we
Right.
have to move forward. And
Yeah.
so I would say that yes, like there is that feeling that some parts of the culture is lost, but I think that we're in a position today that we can really preserve
Mm-hmm.
some of the history, some of the culture that we never been able to, and
Mm-hmm.
especially evident with the language that
Mm-hmm.
now that more people are able to read and write Hmong than ever before in history.
Saying, I think you've shared. I really love what you shared because I think there's some really valuable insights there, and I want to just make sure I get this right. So I hear you saying like culture isn't a static thing that just doesn't change, that just sort of persists throughout time, right? But that culture, even inherent in culture, is that it changes and adapts with times, right? And things like
Yes.
that. Like even whatever we call quote unquote American culture hasn't been stagnant. It hasn't stayed throughout, the years or any kind of culture. So that's what I hear you saying. And secondly, there are maybe things in the Hmong culture that, as we evaluate it, probably aren't good, right? Good for our people
Yes.
or good for all of us, right? And
Polygamy,
yeah,
like
yeah,
polygamy, and
right, and and
some
lack
other
of
things like that.
women participation and
Hmm.
things like that, like you mentioned. So I think those are some awesome things. And we don't have much time. We're running short, but I just want to say I know this is something that a lot of people that who've been watching shareable moments have been bringing up, and I think it's something that I want to continue to have a dialogue with the Hmong community about these sorts of things. And I know that you're in the heart of it, teaching it and with young Hmong minds. And I just want to encourage us to kind of think more about this because I think I'm sure you would agree. There's probably not as much clear thinking on this question as there could be.
Well, I think a lot of these questions that Hmong youth and like the second generation that we
Mm-hmm.
have, like there's no clear defined answers to it, or there's no one answer to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like I think if they really want to learn about some issues, and they want to learn about the culture, like they have to invest in it. They have to
Mm-hmm.
be part of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because just I mean, asking these questions will often lead to more questions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think that you have to be, I just from my talks with people, like, yeah, there's a lot of interest in learning more
Mm-hmm.
about who they are, and so I think that this is the start,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I kind of call it like a Hmong cultural renaissance in a way,
Yeah,
where,
no,
right?
totally. I totally agree. I think you're absolutely right. There is no, I think historically, it's a historical fact. There's probably no point in history where the Hmong culture has probably been as more robust as it is right now. And like you
Yes,
said, as many people speaking Hmong and as many, intellectuals we have in the world who are Hmong. And I think it really is a renaissance culturally and intellectually. And yeah, that's why I'm super excited for the
yeah,
next
and then
next few
just to
years.
add,
Yeah.
like because like with the Hmong minor program at Fresno
Mm-hmm.
State, right? Now that Hmong language is taught um, in that program,
Mm-hmm.
where they could pick it up as a minor,
Mm-hmm.
and then also even like Fresno State having Hmong language as a second language in high
Mm-hmm.
school. right? So
Right.
that
Right.
those are signs that the some parts of the culture are thriving in terms of
Hmm.
language acquisition and learning, maintaining, being able to read and write Hmong. Like, so
Hmm.
I think having those in place will really, I think, in some way preserve the language, the culture too.
Okay, we have to. I'm gonna have to move on, but I mean, I was having so much fun, and I think we definitely have to try to chat more about this again another time.